Well, good evening, and thank you for your time coming to our meeting this evening. This is our second meeting as we discuss about our student population and trends as we try to figure out some ways potentially to meet those needs, whether it be adding on to classrooms or if we need to build buildings, whatever it might be. So I do appreciate your time. I hope everyone had a good day. Why don't we just go around the room and introduce one another so we all know who we're at and maybe give a what your role in the committee is at this time. So obviously Todd Halverson, superintendent, and our next person would be.
I'm Austin Carmichael, building principal.
I'm Brittany Hopt, teacher.
Megan Shagrew, parent of two in the district.
And I'm Troy Lers representing the constituents. I'm the board member.
And I thank everybody for being here, and just so that we keep everything moving in a fluid manner. We definitely are. It is time to start, so we're going to start on time, and we are going to end on time. Be respectful of everyone's time we have going on. As we think about these things, we need to make sure that we're keeping our students first, last, and always. As we address the issues, there's some personal things that everybody may have, but remember, we're here to talk about students and what's best for students and how that can impact them the most. And again, as we have the passionate people, as we talk about some of these things, we all are going to have a different point of view, but let's give everyone an equal voice. Honor the will of the group as we're here and discuss these things. And I think it's going to be good for us when it's complete to go ahead and review this through a summary zone. Obviously, as we go around the room and have our meeting, there might be some things that we forget or things we think about at a later time. So as we move forward, let's go ahead and get into our agenda. Right now, our current student population, and Ms. Carmichael, go ahead and share that with us of where we're at as far as population-based trends in our classrooms, please.
Our current situation is we have about 1,400 elementary kids spread out through 5 elementaries, and we're seeing a 25-to-1 ratio in each building. And a majority of our buildings are currently at or over capacity.
So as we hear those numbers, and everybody here has some ideas of what we might be able to do, some things from our last meeting we came up with, potentially perhaps creating some additional space, because we want to ensure quality education. Obviously, when we think about the number of students Ms. Carmichael was talking about, is providing a safe learning environment for all of our students as well. So if we could come up with some short and long-term objectives, and I'm going to turn it over now to just to all of you to give some information and some ideas that you might think would help us.
One of the things that we've been discussing as a community is the teacher and student ratio ideals that we would like to have as a district. And we want to be thinking about that in terms of doing what's right for our kids. One of our norms is first, last, and always. Well, we want to make sure that we're putting the right number of students in front of teachers and keeping that in a healthy way as we put any ink to paper when we're looking at this as well. And we want to think about those class size numbers and keeping those manageable. And I don't know exactly what the administration is thinking in terms of what is an optimum number, but that's what I would think we should be thinking of as a board member and as a community.
Yeah, I mean, one of my students is in, or one of my children is in a class that has 26, and there's one teacher in there, and I just feel as a parent that my child is just getting not quite the services that they deserve, just because it's not the teacher's fault. They are doing their best job, but it's just there's so many children for that one person to help, and so I feel like my daughter is just lacking in some areas because there's so many kids in her class.
And as a teacher, I have taught classrooms of 10 kids all the way up to 30 kids. And I can tell you from experience that I feel most comfortable around 18 to 20 in my room. When I have more than that, I do feel like I can't get to all the questions. And especially with the kids that maybe need some modifications or they need some extra help, I just can't be there. There are things I can do. I can pair them up with another leader student, but I would agree that that is something that we definitely want to keep forefront, is to have, that right number of students per teacher. Try to keep that as one of the important goals here.
Mr. Carmichael, as we talk about and you hear some of these things, what do you feel like we've done in the buildings, particularly in the building that you supervise, to utilize the amount of staff we have and to utilize the amount of room we have? Do you feel like we have been good stewards of what we've been given by our community thus far?
Yes, I believe that we have kind of exhausted all options to continue to serve every student in the classroom, whether it be with our growing special ed department or our EL students. 26 in a room without the ability to hire paras, special ed paras, EL paras. We're kind of wearing our teachers out. So I think we've exhausted all options up to this point.
Do what do any of you have any ideas or any thoughts on one thing that some neighboring districts have gone to is the portable classrooms, particularly being able to place them behind the school or wherever, where we have size now or where we have land available now, next door to some of our school. Is that anything from a parent or board or teacher or, Mr. Carmack and I have had a few discussions about what some things we could do, but what do the rest of you think in terms of utilizing temporary structures?
I mean, as a parent, I immediately think of safety. Just the way our world is today, and I know the school is secure, but if my like daughter is out in a portable, there's just the door. There's no security system, so I feel like that is my biggest fear as a parent, is the security of the portables. And I know they're portable, so the quality of the portable is not as nice either. So I just don't feel like that's probably the best learning environment for our students or the best solution. I get like it might have to be temporary, but I don't think that's a long-term plan we should go for.
And I know Mr. Helverson and Mr. Carmichael were part of the building and grounds conversation when we talked about this, because it was numerical and fiscal responsibilities that we were talking about and the affect. And this was one of the options that was responsible in terms of the finances for a district. So that's a big point, Megan. I appreciate you bringing that up. That the safety rationale is something that when we're looking at it in terms of fiscal responsibility, that safety rationale has to be brought into the equation as well. Thank you for bringing that up.
Ms. Hupp, from the teacher's point of view, obviously when we make decisions, we try to keep the view of what I call the people out there in the front line are really going to be having to deal with this. As being the representative of your staff, of your teachers, what do you think their view would be on, utilizing temporary structures or having portable classrooms, those types of things? I'm sure there'd be some teachers like, you're not putting me outside, or
Yeah, you're going to have teachers who are more flexible than others for sure. But I think teachers with the same concerns, like, all right, is this safe for our students? Big thing is I am flexible and I'm a team player. And so speaking for myself, I could say, yes, we can do this temporarily and figure out some sort of temporary safety plan that would make this work. Because while we're in the process of building new buildings or gaining space or whatever it may be, this might be the only option. And nope, it's not perfect, but I guess I'm willing to sacrifice, and it's because I have done this before. I have taught in portables. They can be cold though. They can be cold during the winter and hot during the summer. So they are not ideal. But if it is a sacrifice we have to make for a time, then I think the majority of your teachers would do that. They would make that sacrifice.
And I would guess, Mr. Carmichael, as far as supervision of staff and students, that's going to add something else on too. As we talk about the safety, that add another layer of what we're trying to, as we focus on safety, from your point of view, then it's going to be another layer to, have additional buildings outside of the building to supervise and students coming and going throughout the day and just those types of things. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think how do we logistically have travel between students that have to enter the building and exit the building? How do we keep our building locked? How do we have to escort those students in and out? Do we have to what's the emergency response protocol for storms, for lockdowns? What does that look like? There's just a giant conversation that needs to be had when we're talking about having um, classrooms outside of the building.
Right. I think so. Those are some good. I appreciate you guys having that conversation and getting your points of view. Obviously, the number one thing that I've taken from that from all of you is the safety aspect of it. I think we all agree on that. So I was tasked with trying to come up with what would it look like if we hired additional staff. Generally, when I put together a staff, I'm going to do the hiring. I go by an average of what a BA plus 9, so that's a bachelor's, plus 9 hours would be. And even though the base salary is 37.5, by the time we do NPERS and FICA and whatever they would take for health, that's going to be 72,000. So if we talk about adding 3 to 4 additional staff members, we're getting up into the well over the 300,000 range additional into our budget there as well. So that's one of the things that was also brought up to us, and that we've been looking at. Now, I'm very interested in what all of you would have to say about enhancing the online learning opportunities. And when I think of the online learning opportunities, obviously I think of it more so for our high schoolers. Obviously, we're not going to have a kindergarten do online learning, but um, do you, Ms. Carl, have you had anybody come to you and say, "Hey, I'd rather do more online learning," or "Could I have more online learning?" Then I'm interested in what parents and teachers and obviously what direction would our board want to go with something like this as well?
Um, Conversations I've had about online learning post COVID are not very positive. That's kind of last resort. We want students in the classroom with their peers and staff. They just don't get the same knowledge, the same. Um, you can't answer questions. You can't ask questions like you can in a real classroom. So I haven't had the best conversations about focusing on online education to solve our crowding and space issues.
And I'm going to add on to that. I want the kids in the building with me. I just think their education is so much more valuable. They are learning social skills, they're learning to collaborate together. I'm right there to see them working. I don't know if mom or dad is doing their work or, I'm sure they're not, but I just think there's so much more value to face-to-face learning. I don't love, especially with the younger kids and middle school students. I I can consider it when they're older, but I I want them in the building with me. That would be my first choice.
Yeah, I think of the social aspect. Just that year that we pretty much missed with COVID, I saw such a gap with my daughters that, so I think back to the social aspect and how much our kids today lack social skills already with technology. And I think that would just be more enhanced. And I'm not in the classroom, but I would assume that or just make presumptions that it would be like students that probably need the social skills too, that are choosing to go online or are maybe not fitting in at school. And I feel like they'll be more secluded online and that doesn't help our mental health.
And I can't for the life of me figure out why this is in my head, but as we're as we're talking about this, I'm wondering if going with more online would curb that trend of the homeschool options that we have because the kids are taking that. And I lean on the administrators to help me understand the percentage that we have leaving the district. Would going to enhancing the online learning opportunities, would that curb that trend? Because we're sitting about 8% right now in our district. I mean, that was numbers that we've been provided. Is there a way that this may help curb that? Have we discussed that?
Have you guys looked at that in your building, Mr. Carmichael?
No, we have not looked that up yet. That's something we can, if we want to have further conversation about, we can. I do know that um, purchasing an online opportunity um, for all students can get quite spendy, and it can have um, a large dent into our budget. So that's something to talk about as well.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I think I appreciate the input each of you have had. Obviously, today, tonight, these are some brainstorming, some potential things we could do. I'd like for each of you to kind of go back and reflect on it. At some point, I think we're going to have to narrow down maybe a top two, three, and then get some committees together to really evaluate. I think we need to be very transparent with all of our constituents, with all of our groups that we're working with. And from my point of view, we need to be very frugal and utilize the monies that um, our communities have put us in charge of. Uh, and one thing I could do too is as we go forward, I can look at some of the ways we can fund if we get to a point where we feel like we're going to need a bond. Maybe there's some money that we can utilize through special building fund to utilize for additional type of facilities. There's lots of things we can do, but right now we've got a nice, in my mind, from what I'm hearing from you, we've got a nice line of things in mind that we can at least incorporate and investigate further and try and narrow those down to what's going to be best for our students first, last, and always. Show our community that we're good stewards with the money that they put us in charge of, and be transparent with all the staff members and those involved as well. So I think we've all really done a nice job with that. I do not want to be the one to assign team members to oversee specific action items. If there's anybody that says, hey, I'm really passionate about this, then I would just say, hey, let's assign yourself or volunteer yourself, and can't just be, you don't have to, hey, say, I just want to do the one there. You might say there's two or three things I really want to look at. I would suggest anything dealing with class size and facilities that I'd like to have Mr. Carmichael also a part of that one, and maybe some
Right.
others as well. And a board member should be involved in one or two of them. And then obviously teachers, parents. We don't have to narrow it down to one, because I think the more people we have involved, more people looking at it from a different lens, right? We all understand, those of us that are educators, we understand education. We can look at it from this point of view. I'm interested to see from a parent point of view, a board member point of view. And then I want to hear what teachers had to say about, because I look at it from the broad range of the district, the budget, and how these things all tie together. And sometimes Mr. Carmichael looks at it from the building he's in and he supervises, but it's nice to get that broad scope from everyone else.
I don't know if you guys ever thought of having like a large meeting, especially once we start narrowing down to the budget, because I know lots of people want to just know the numbers. I personally, just being on this committee, it's a first time for me. And so like just learning the budget and the numbers, I would have never known it cost that much to add staff. And so I know in a lot of discussions I've had with other parents, it's just like, well, I don't know why they're not hiring more teachers. I don't know why we're not hiring more teachers. But we don't know. We don't know that it costs that much to hire a teacher or where the budget is. So I think like open community meeting when we start to narrow it down about budget, especially if we need to like pass a bond, would be essential.
Absolutely.
And I'd be
Yeah.
curious to look at some data with online learning. Like I said, I can understand high school kids maybe wanting to do it, and then Troy bringing up the homeschooling. I didn't know those numbers either for sure, but I'd be willing to look at the data and to see what the best option for that would be so that I have an open mind and can come at it from both sides. That would be something that a role that I would take on.
I would be willing to, as a board member, to jump in with any one of the teams. You know, I'm not an educator, so my perspective is more business oriented. So I'm curious about all of this. I do care about kids. I'm willing to jump on any one of these, and I would help anyone gather any information that's necessary. So whatever is needed, just let me know. I'd be glad to help.
And I can be available to gather data, budget, money, state trends. As you guys, as most of you are aware, you know, sometimes we rely heavily on you know, especially this time of year, we're all kind of hanging out there. What's the legislature going to do? What's our property taxes going to look like? What types of funding we're going to get for the schools? So I could be that person to go to if you have questions about, you know, what's it going to look like? What are these things? Or if there's specific questions about, you know, adding a portable classroom or information, you know, gathering from, you know, other districts that have been through some of the same similar things, I could do that as well and just kind of be a go-to guy to find some data answers and types of things like that.
Perfect.
I think what we should do now is, obviously, as we're talking about some of the things we're going to be looking into, what do you guys feel is a good, what does the committee feel is a good time to do like a regular check-in and maybe come back together and say, you know, just review where we've been at a little bit, maybe update some of the things that on the action plan, per se, don't really have the action plan in play yet, but come back together and narrow down and discuss some of a little bit more in depth, these items we discussed this evening, and maybe from that have another check-in to start narrowing down to, okay, here's the direction we want to go, maybe.
I think it would take a few months to look into the online learning cost and the data driven behind that. Look at different um, if districts are still using portable classrooms now, what's it cost to bring in one of those? What's it cost to hook up electricity? What's it cost heating and air? Things like that. Would that be beneficial? Would we be actually saving that much money rather than having an addition? Or so I think at least a few weeks to be able to crunch some numbers and really gather some good data on some of these hot topics.
So just
Mr. Halverson, is it your intention to have this in place by next fall?
I don't think where we're at right now, we could be in place with something this significant by next fall. I think if we're going to do this, I really want to go through the process and really get a lot of collaboration from our community, other members, and be very transparent in what we do so that whatever decisions we make, we can feel very comfortable about a good positive decision and not, okay, let's, you know, plug this hole and then the water starts pop out this end. So I would say by next January, be able to have our plan that we want to pursue in place. So that would be something I would think would be in our best interest. But I'm willing to hear, you know, I'm willing to hear what you guys think would be best for us to get going on. One thing I was looking at the other day is potentially some neighboring districts have kind of gone with, not kind of, they have gone with building elementaries, fill the elementary, build another elementary, fill the elementary, build another elementary. As your population comes up through the ranks, you're filling in with new buildings for the elementary students. And that might be some things we could discuss at a later date as well. So I would say maybe January of next year would be a good time for all of our groups to get together and start to really put a plan in play.
So just to wrap my head around this and what I want to take back to my colleagues is we're just kind of, to recap what we said, we are just in the exploration steps, right? And collecting data and figuring out budget. We're all in that. That's where we're at. Correct?
That's what I think I'm hearing from everyone.
Okay. Perfect. That is what I thought.
And then going back to what Mr. Carmichael has alluded to, giving us time to collect information. I know you have graduation coming up, Mr. Carmichael. You have some focus there. Ms. Hop, do you have teaching to get done? And I know, Mr. Grew, you have a graduate that's coming through. So we need to make sure we're taking care of that. And you're doing nothing, Mr. Halverson, as a superintendent. So with all those being said, we want to get the school year wrapped down. I think that's a good idea. I think it's a great plan. And Austin, thanks for that suggestion.
Oh.
Well, I think we've always had a very good district. I think we've always been very good at what we do. And I think the community appreciates the work of our teachers, our administrators, staff members. And so we want to continue on that trend. And you get into some very slippery things if you start to just put something out there and say this is what we're going to do. So I appreciate all of the input you guys have had. And again, you think from everyone thinks from different avenues, and that's what makes this team so successful. Any questions and suggestions at this point? Now that we've kind of talked about things and we discussed things, what pops into mind? Oh, I didn't even think of this until we started having this conversation. Or did anybody think of this now that we've had this conversation? I'd like to add this into it. What do we have going on there?
I guess just from the community standpoint, like, what can I do to help? Like, or do we just pretty much keep this on the down low right now? I know people have questions. So just how much do you want us sharing at this point?
I'm not trying to hide anything. I don't think we don't ever want to hide anything. I think the correct answer is we recognize that the good part is we have a community people want to move into, and our student population is growing, and we are exploring ways that we can be the most efficient with funding, the most efficient with time, the most efficient with staff, so that we can provide the great learning experience for our students that we've all come to expect and appreciate.
Sounds good.
I think we just have to be aware of when community members are asking us questions, we're answering the question with fidelity. We're stating facts, and we're not putting our own personal spin on things to help sway the community one way or another.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I appreciate that. I think it's going to be important for us when we do adjourn that when we leave here, we're all on the same page as far as these are some things we've looked at, and we're going to move forward to do some more exploring on it.
I think one of the vehicles we have at our disposal, Mr. Halverson, is at the board meetings, we can give updates on where we're at with the process with this committee. So I think we can control a little bit of that, and that's kind of our job as board members to do that as well. So I trust the staff to do a great job with that already. I trust the administration to do that. It'll be my job to help you do yours as well. So I'm ready for that.
And for those of you who don't know, I have weekly cabinet meetings or administrative team meetings with all the administrators in the district. And that's a continual discussion of what's going on in our buildings. And so this gives us some very specific topics that we could start looking into and just getting a feel for what we need. And I think it's going to be important for the PTO or any parent organization to, provide some feedback as well. So I appreciate, parents are always welcome. And so I appreciate you visiting with us and being on this committee, Ms. Sugar.
I feel honored to be a part of it. We move into this community for the district. That's why everyone's moving in. And so we feel very blessed that we're able to be in a district where our girls are getting the best education that they are.
Well, I think we're at our time. Like I said, when we started out our meeting, one of our norms was to be on time, start and end on time. And so looking at our time, the summary we've gone through, we're going to continue to look at some of our action items that we had on there. Just a brief review of that: expanding school facilities, adjusting class sizes, utilizing temporary structures. Example would be a portable classroom, hiring additional staff, and then potentially enhancing online learning opportunities. We did a brief discussion of the cost, the time, and the resource required. And so moving forward, our next meeting date with this committee, I've got 3 dates picked out: the 28th, the 2nd, the 7th. So I'd ask that you get your calendars out when you get home. We're not going to do that now. And then we'll pick one of those dates to have our next meeting to come back and just have a brief overview of what we talked about tonight and touch base moving forward again.
Perfect.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Looking
Thank you
forward
for
to it.
letting us be a part.
And we